Isn't it? Even the barn is like a coverall, but it's super high. Yep.
Like everything doesn't. I was just in
Yeah. It's a really nice facility.
Even just like all the black curtains too, like neutral colors.
Instead of green or something?
Yeah, I was. Some of them they just seem like they've been
Yes. That's like 90s or something.
done
Yes.
with it.
We should be in charge of it.
I agree. I agree.
Fantastic. Let's hit it.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Horseman's Hot Seat. We got a good one here for you today, folks. We got Jonathan Field. I'm sure that you've heard of him, know him. We just want to thank Horse Expo Canada for bringing us here today, allowing us the space to all come together and share information and learn from great horsemen such as Jonathan and many other folks that we've got to have up here as well. We'd also like to thank the Cowboy Channel of Canada for providing this beautiful stage and a place for us to do this.
For sure. This is Alicia Bradburn. My name is Kylie Bartel, and we've been your co-hosts for this segment of the weekend. And we're so excited to be here and so excited to have you with us, Jonathan.
Really glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so before we jump into the questions, I actually have to thank you because I met this dear friend of mine at one of your clinics when she was riding at Villa Stables and I was auditing. And so it was just kind of a cool connection moment. We realized that yesterday as we were thinking about sitting down with you today, how your clinics and what you're doing with horses gives people, like-minded people, an opportunity to come together and connect. So I don't know if you knew that, but we wanted to just start us off.
No, that's so cool. That's what this whole thing is about, though, isn't it? It's,
Yeah.
it's seeing old friends, meeting new people, and
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's just been a fun journey just to think about
sure.
the big scale and how we get to where we are.
And you guys are doing great things. You get together and get that energy going and collaborate, and that's what this needs to be about. Is collaboration and
Yeah.
finding people that are passionate about it and seeing what we can do together.
Right. That's, so great. Awesome. Well, just for the folks, if you don't mind introducing yourself, giving folks a little bit of an idea of what you're here for and what brought you to Expo.
Yeah, just to come and share horsemanship, and I've been coming to these things for a lot of years now. I think it's well over 20 years, and you continue to just try to evolve things and help people, and that's really the goal. This particular weekend is in terms of here in Alberta a little different, where I didn't bring any of my own horses, so it's fun to meet the first day a yearling and a 2-year-old and kind of get to experience those guys and show people, especially in the spring like this, some of the things you can do and get them to have confidence and all those things. And then just come and generally just help push wind into the sails of people who are passionate about horses.
Right.
If they can get some more knowledge, and there's a saying where knowledge runs out, violence or frustration often begins.
Oh, that's
so if we can stay away from that and just figure out, how does a horse work mentally? How do they think? How do they operate? It helps people kind of put things in, instead of being frustrated for a horse being a horse.
Yeah.
To go, okay, this is what horses do, and now how do I work my way forward from there?
Right. That switch to curiosity tends to get you a lot farther. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. You want to jump in with our next question?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
This one is, one that it could be obvious, but because we have a mixed crowd and you're Jonathan Field, we figured this would be really something that people here might want to know. What attributes for you are important when you're purchasing a horse?
Well, purchasing a horse, the big thing is it got to be how well they're put together. It's the bone, the feet. Just I like to see them tight coupled. Pretty. I think that's nice to go out there. But the big thing is soundness. I'm looking. I was just talking with Ryan from Fleetwood Farms there. We were just talking about horses and breeding and this very topic. And for me, I've gone out and done these demonstrations over the years, and shows and things like that, but I also live on a ranch. We also ride out and cowboy on these horses, and I'm happy that the horses that I've had here over the years are traveled around with those old horses. They're in their mid to late 20s now, but my son who's here rides them, and Angie takes them out, and friends that come up go cattle drives, and so they're still sound, and they're still, because they're well put together when I got them. And then, you know, managing their soundness throughout their career and the time off that they get and what I ask. You know, I'm lucky in that I don't do something where I have to do a huge amount of repetition on their joints. It's so it helps me a lot there. But fundamentally, they've got to be sound. They got to be, you know. And then the reality is, though, I don't buy a lot of horses.
Right.
You know, I end up with horses that are like, a lot of my herd have been castaways.
They came to you because of their journey, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious then, for your clients and for people you're helping, when they're looking to purchase horses, do you have any recommendations that you want them to look for? Is it similar for what you just said, obviously feet and soundness, but is there any other pieces that you recommend for them?
It really, like when someone looking to buy a horse or get a horse, they need the opportunity to learn and develop their seat, develop their balance. You know, the thing that I think that is the major issue for a lot of people starting is they're just overfaced on the horse.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they're overfaced with the horse they got. The horse is too green. They're going to try to, you know, go out on the trails and do these things. You know, to go out on a trail ride, it's like, oh, I just want to go ditch ride. Well, you're alongside a highway. You're going to be a hood ornament in 10 minutes if you don't know how to, like, there is a level of horsemanship to go on a trail, to ride alongside the ditch that you've got to have to take that horse out of their home environment and go enjoy them. Or a group or some, you know, big jamboree with the horses or backcountry horseman thing. You got to have a good horse and have the opportunity to develop your seat, develop your timing, and so that you're not overwhelmed mentally just trying to stay on the top.
Right.
And with one spook, and all of a sudden everything is amplified to where now they're grabbing on, which that horse can't look after them and it just seems to spiral in a snowball down the wrong way. So I think the big thing is just, you know, get the horse that gives you the chance to learn.
That's so good.
And do it in an environment that you have the chance to build confidence.
Yeah.
And if it feels like it's always coming at you, and you're up against it, then you need to get to the point where you're confident, where you can bring something to the horse. It's not like this is all just, it's coming at me so fast, I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, and then the fun goes out of it, and a few injuries later, you're done.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a sweet spot where when people go to look at horses or looking where they want to be challenged enough so they stay engaged in their growing and learning, but not so overfaced that they lose confidence. Because I can imagine if they're too broke or not challenging enough, you might.
I don't know that there is not challenging enough, because if I look at the top horses I have, there's so much to learn with them still.
That's a good point.
You know, there's always something I can do to slice it finer, to gain more, to try something new, you know, I just think the horse, I always call them masters waiting. You know, sometimes people, they think, oh, you know, I've outgrown this horse, or this horse is no good, I need another one. I always think they're a master waiting. They're just waiting for us to get better. And as we get better, I've never, for example, Hal, I've never outgrown him. You know, when I wasn't good with feel and timing and balance, he kind of put up with me. As I got better, he got better. As I got better, he got better again.
Right.
And it's like, wow, I didn't know that he could be that sensitive. I didn't know he could be that tuned in. I didn't know if I just, like, look, he'd go.
Yeah.
Rather than, here, and we're going.
Yeah. That's really cool. I hadn't thought of it that way, that you could never get a horse that was too easy for you. But that makes all the sense in the world to me when I think of my own journey with some of the horses I've had. And you can get to the places where you can go do things, but you can always refine and get better. So that makes all the sense.
Yeah, maybe, you know, you're jumping or something, and then you're getting to meter 30, meter 40, and then, you know, the horse just runs out of jump.
Sure.
Obviously, but 98%, 99% of people are not going to run into that.
Yeah.
The horse that they have, they can just continue to get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jonathan, maybe not a lot of people know this about you, but you did a TED Talk. I believe it was titled Finding Your Sweet Spot. Can you give us a little bit of a synopsis of what the message was that you wanted to leave with people that was important to you to share?
Well, that was a while ago. So many times, I think a really simple thing is, so many times people are reflecting on the past, like the good old days, and they're reflecting on the future, like, you know, if and when that comes, I'll find that happiness,
For sure.
that peace. And I've done that in life, you know, lots. You're trying to pursue this thing, you're raising kids, you're building a ranch, you know, when we get past this hump, things will get easier. You know, but you know, I even think about this place. You know, Angie running around here with Mason in her belly, Weston in a stroller. We've got 4 or 5 horses outside. We're in the middle of a road traveling in the motorhome. I remember being here as a foot of snow. The motorhome was leaking. The heat went out. It froze. They had to go back to the hotel room. I mean, I remember those times, and I look back on those times now, and I think, man, that was a sweet spot in life.
Yes.
You know, that was a time where I look at it, and I think, I hope that in that moment I was thinking the same thing, and I probably wasn't. It's probably like, let's survive this.
The struggle.
Not realizing that. So when I drive in here today, you know, I drive in and I go, this is where I want to be today. This is, I've chose this, and I am in my sweet spot right now. And I'm going to stay in there all day with this.
Yep.
I'm not going to wish my way out of here on Sunday evening when it's not Sunday evening. I'm not going to try to get this conversation over with or I'm in the middle of it right now.
Yep.
And if you find yourself in that, I think that you can operate better when you're right there rather than wishing your way to somewhere else. And you can find more moments memorable moments that are not where your brain is tied up from, you know, all this other crap that happens in our brains, thinking about if, could, would, should, and everything else.
For sure.
It kind of reminds me of a saying of a friend of both of ours, Glenn Stewart, another horseman, how he'd often say, we get to, we don't got to, right? And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying, just being mindful that we choose things and then really living that way on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. Our next question for you moves into some of the inner world of horsemanship. So do you think there is a mental, emotional, physical, and or spiritual aspect to horsemanship? And if so, can you explain?
I think the spiritual thing, I think all of us share it that love horses. So we don't know how. It's in us.
Yeah.
You know, we've been injured by them. We've been broke by them. We've been somehow. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're in New York City and, you know, the horse is in you. I've had people that, you know, I've wanted a horse my entire life and they're 50 years old and they're getting their first horse, but they've been dreaming of horses. I think that is in their spirit. It's in their soul.
Yeah.
I think the mental part, I think people often take, they often don't realize what it takes. They're not willing to do what it takes to sustain, to continue to go through the adversity that happens. I think the mental part is also to do with the learning curve of it. You know, to sit in that place where you don't know what the answer is, and you know, you're just going to try to keep asking. That's why I think these things are special. You know, all this is like a buffet of horsemanship and
For
opportunity, and I think the emotional part is the valuable part because the horse is a direct reflection of our emotions.
Yeah.
If we're mean, mad, sad, whatever it is, it's coming through. They read the intention of a predator at 200 yards. They can certainly read the intention of their person at 4 feet or on top of them.
That's a good point.
So if the horse can, you know, for me, I was lucky. You know, I had that training as a young guy as an English rider. My mom was a passionate dressage person. But then when I went working on those ranches and that, you know, you're riding all day and you eventually you have to turn loose to the horse. After 10, 12 hours, 6 days a week, your mental and your emotional and the physical part starts to turn loose to the horse. The movement of the horse. And you have another horse the next day. So you can't carry all that mess of the learning curve or the frustrations into the next horse. You're just getting to those cows. You're just getting over that next hill. And as a result, all of that kind of goes away. You don't really have the time for it. You don't have the energy for it. And I think a lot of times when people just, you know, go for half an hour and do more talking than doing and get wrapped up in their brain about, you know, all the good, the bad, the this, the that about it, and spend more time than on the back of a horse, just letting that horse come into them. And I even feel it myself. Like I find my best, I'm at my best in my brain, in my life, when I'm on a horse more. And I feel like if I'm not, I'm on this concrete too much. When I ride, the first few rides, I'm on the top of the horse. But then as I trot out for longer, and that's why I like to ride my horses out on the ranch, get breathing, get looking ahead. The horse looks ahead, and then I feel myself starting to come back into the horse. And I remember one of my mentors, Ronnie Willis, used to say it, and I felt it a few moments, in my life, and I always look for it. But he said, sometimes a feller can't tell where you stop and your horse begins. And I think
Love
that's
that.
where
Yeah.
I like to try to go to if
Yeah.
I can. But the concrete doesn't help. You
No.
got to get on the back of the horse, and you got to
Yeah.
spend some time on the back of the horse.
Right.
And you can't get paralysis of analysis, just mentally and emotionally bringing all of your stuff into the relationship with a horse, as if the horse owes you something.
Yeah.
Horse owes you nothing. It's a great privilege to ride a horse. You're the one that caught them. They didn't wake you out of bed and catch you.
Yes.
They owe you nothing.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Right.
so good.
Have to
That's
remember
so
that.
good. Such a good reminder. And I think because a lot of times we go that love. It makes me think of how much we love them and what they can bring us, how they can help us shift, almost dropping out of our head into more of our heart and our body, showing up more presently and fully. And sometimes I almost find it easier to remember how much I appreciate them when I'm farther away, and then when I get there and they're dirty and I have to go take care. You get into that analytical mind because there are certain things that have to be taken care of, and we want to do well, but we can almost be our own worst enemy sometimes. We can get in our own way. So being able to just remember what's important,
Yeah, you put the miles on, and all that goes away.
yeah,
You're just thinking about breathing, and you're thinking about getting in time with the horse, and you're looking where you're going.
yeah.
I really like that word picture for me that I feel like you put out there, and I just wanted to kind of repeat that because I feel like I don't want anybody to miss it. Just how you said kind of when you're going through struggles with your horse, and sometimes that can even be a season, and then you said like it's like cresting a hill, and so like not dwelling on the past, but really like it is like tools in your toolbox, or just the accomplishment of getting through that and coming out the other side, taking what you've learned. I just really liked that.
Yeah. So good.
Should we move on to the next one?
You betcha.
Awesome. How do you know when to end a session with your horse?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the easy answer always is like end on a good note. But I think the bigger thing for me is I'm looking for my horse to, when you see a horse and they kind of look like I like to look at my horses and they're like Clint Eastwood. They're like, yo, make my day. Like they have a look.
Yeah.
And if some
Yeah,
of you have met my
a
horses
spark.
and Little or Hal, or they got a look. I remember when I used to do demonstrations here, and Hal, I'd cut him loose at Liberty, and I don't do Liberty training like, it's not trick training or anything like that. It's just, I do it because I always wanted the horse to want to be with me. And when I seen that, I was like, man, what would it take like to get a horse? What is that? I remember having to rope my horse to catch him sometimes at the ranch. So when a horse, Liberty for me was really testing my teaching, testing my connection. That's the same with bridleless. And over time, it became something I did in the audience, but I never added a bunch of tricks. I've seen movie horse Liberty, I've seen trick training, circus, but what I do is really, it's about getting the connection, and then I want my Liberty horses or horses that are online or Liberty look like a riding horse. They bend, they express, they can handle up energy, down energy, they can collect, and they feel the same, or it's the same training program when they're at Liberty as it is when I'm online, as when I ride. It's all connected. So for me, when I can connect those dots, and my horse has that feeling like, I got it. I remember I was going to say about Hal, he'll run around and he'll bust out. We used to always play that song, I Want to Break Free.
Right.
And Angie would put it on, and Hal would go around, he'd run around, he'd put his head right out to the crowd, he'd be like, hey guys, and he'd just take a big look as he cruised the whole arena. Like right at 2 eyes
Right.
looking at him.
Yeah.
And then the song would go, but I'm falling in love, and he would turn and run back in. And he looked cool. I mean, he just looked cool. He didn't look like a horse bot. He looked like a live, kicking buck. He'd buck and kick and run.
Right.
But then he'd come back in, and he would join up and hook in with me. And so if I can leave a horse in a spot where I think he's a little closer to Clint Eastwood than when I started, he's a little more confident.
Yeah.
He's a little more like trusting in how he looks at me.
Yeah.
Not pushy, not disrespectful, but
Yeah.
that's kind of where I want to leave him.
Right. Makes me think of you really leaving his sense of his trust in himself intact. You know, sometimes I think when we want to gain leadership or things like that, we're trying to really get them to trust us. But if we get them to give themselves up, there can be, it almost feels like something gets taken away in a way. And so if it's possible to let them bring their full beauty, their full spirit, their full power in a way that is shapeable and is relational, you can work with it. It doesn't have to be a safety thing or a threat, but just letting them be their full selves. Letting them.
Yeah, leave their dignity intact.
Yeah, that's fairly. The picture in my mind as you're describing that, I feel inspired, which is obviously a big part of what you do. So yeah, good stuff. Our next question for you moves a little bit towards more of your personal process and growth. What are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced you in your life?
He likes books, so this is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, we picked this one on purpose.
A real reader here.
Maybe I should have read these questions ahead. Yeah. 3 books or
Or just one.
I have a library of books, and from horsemanship to, I've read every biography that you can read, from Muhammad Ali to Wayne Gretzky to Michael J. Fox, Christopher Reeves. I mean, all of these people, and I like real stories. I like reading people's real stories. I think a horse book that I like would be Reflections of an Equestrian Art by Nuno Oliveira.
Oh, yeah.
Anything by Charles de Comfy. Just his detail in regards to horses and horsemanship, and then his background are big. I've got a couple going right now, and lately I started listening to more books.
Right.
So I find that really valuable too, just going down the road, and
Yeah.
over the years there's just lots of different writers. I'm listening to a book right now on leadership by a guy called the Bullfrog, and he's a Navy SEAL and the longest serving one, and he just the lessons of real application of leadership and what leadership is and the communication it takes and the misconceptions a lot of people have about leadership. And I find when you find a really good leader in anywhere, those lessons apply just the same to horses.
Yes.
As they do. So it's something that I like to look outside the horse world often as well for those inspirations.
Yeah.
Very cool. This one, I feel like you're going to have some meat for us, just because you're not uncomfortable with discomfort, I guess.
Yeah.
How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure?
Well, I think I fail every day. I think that's I don't have any issue with failure. I think the big thing is the attitude has to be, we learn.
Yeah.
What do we learn? What am I going to do with the information I have now? So many times people say, if only I had have known what I know now, I would have done it like this. I don't like that one. I like to say, if only now I know what I know now, and given that information, what will I do? That's gone. But given what I know now, what will I do? And, when you look at, if you think of failure as like a terminal thing, there's no outcome that can come out of it that's going to be good. Well, then it's a pretty damn depressing thing. It's a ship lost.
Right.
Right. But if you look at it like, given what I know now, what just happened,
Yeah.
or what I just did to myself, or what will I do now?
Yeah.
And how will I use that information? And whether it's a failure or an injury or, like even right now with this broken collarbone, I could have just kind of wiped the schedule and just said, I'm just going to sit home and heal, like the doctor said.
Right.
But, what happens, I think, when you get to tired or you get to sore or you get to, all the bull goes away.
Right.
You get down to, you don't have the luxury for all of the crap that can go on in a person's brain. It just gets down to the rubber meets the road. And I like that spot in life. I like it when I don't have the luxury of all of the extra. When it just gets down to, this is all that matters. I'm going to get out of the truck. I'm going to try to get this seatbelt on. I'm going to get out of the truck. I'm going to walk in here.
Right.
And I'm just at peace with that. I don't have 52,000 things going on in my brain. So even with that, you can kind of go, wow, there's something in this here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see if I can carry that into the next 6 months when I'm all fit, healthy, and strong.
For sure.
And I've got all the luxury of all the bull that I could have in the day, bringing in. I go, no, this is the mental focus it takes, and this is where I want to be. And that, in fact, is my sweet spot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing would be just the level of fitness I want to get in when this is done. It wasn't that I was in bad before, but the same thing when my hand got hurt. I just said, as a result of this, I'm going to be more than and less than.
Right.
And I think that example, my boys my Masons traveling with me right now, helping me get I got a brace on right now, holding everything kind of still, and he helps me in the morning get that on. He sees me go through that, and I'm bringing him through that. And
Right.
he sees his dad and his mom go through that, and Weston as well, and then he'll be doing that with his son one day or his daughter, and he'll remember that. So there's lots of value there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It just, as you're describing that, in my day job, I'm actually a therapist. I do work with counseling and some equine assisted stuff, and we often talk about being grounded and that the benefits of being able to be in the present moment and really be able to take this where the rubber meets the road in this moment, what's important. And the way you described how that looks for you just is such a beautiful picture of what that can look like. Because I think the idea of being grounded, people are like, that's nice, but what does it really tangibly look like? And I can imagine that when you walk into that presence, whether you're working with a person or working with a horse, they can feed off that. It's kind of like it's a ripple effect sometimes when that mentality gets brought in. And even as we're sitting here, it's funny that just the way that you can speak with it. I feel like I'm benefiting too, just from like sinking down into it and really enjoying that presence. So it's thank you for sharing that. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool. Yeah. All right, where are we at? The next one will be, oh yes, I picked this one on purpose. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? Yeah. Because people have known you for a long time. You've been doing these things for a long time. So sometimes it's really interesting to know, in the last 5 years, has there been anything specific? Anything that's been really important?
I think for me, on a real personal level, is that I just feel the extreme limited time I have with my boys. They're at an age now where you can just see it's coming, and they're going to be leaving, and that is, to me, it supersedes everything.
Yep.
So, Weston looks at me eyeball to eyeball now, and he's off. He's a man. I could give him a credit card, and he could take the 4-horse trailer and land in Toronto, and he's 16, but he's extremely competent.
Yeah.
And Mason's here, and I'm grateful. They're going to be busy. They're going to be gone. And so I think that, I don't know if that's a change of belief, but I've really, really decided in the last 5 years. It's why we moved recently. We bought a new ranch. We built a ranch. We did it together. Spent thousands of hours out there building fence together and, cutting trails and tearing roofs off. And, I got to do that. I always wanted to do that with my boys. Chop firewood, do those things, ride together, whatever it is. So I want to make sure those moments are not missed.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost
First
feels,
things first, right?
I was just going to
That's
say,
right.
yeah, when you have those priorities in line, everything else seems to fall into place a little easier. That's really great. Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Jonathan, could you tell us just a little bit about the property that you and Angie have purchased?
Yeah, so I was raised in the Fraser Valley, and then lived there, and all my family and everybody, where I went to kindergarten, my boys went to kindergarten, they went to the same family that I went with, some of the families we all grew up together, and so the Fraser Valley was really home. Of course, I went to Merritt when I was 14 and started cowboying at the Cochana Ranch seasonally, and then more and more time, and always had my heart in either Nicola Valley or the interior somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was always where I wanted to be. And so my dad and I bought a ranch together called the James Creek Ranch 15, 18 years ago. And we would kind of split our time between the two. But we just decided that when the kids were at that age, you know, where it's like, we either move them now to get out of the valley and go live this on the ranch full time, or we commit to here. And so we didn't want to move to Merritt. One of the more opportunity in Kamloops, just out of Kamloops. So we bought a place in Pinnetan Lake. It's a beautiful spot. It's above Kamloops. It's the watershed for Kamloops, so it's quite green. We get a lot of moisture. We get tall grass. There's no wind. It's not like the desert. I don't want to sell it too much because we're trying to keep.
Right. You want to keep.
I don't even like telling people about it too much. But it's a beautiful spot. There's lakes all around us. So we bought a quarter section there. We still do horsemanship camps at the James Creek Ranch out of Merritt, but eventually we'll move them over. And we're surrounded by some of the big ranches in the area, and we can trot horses out there. And it's South Slope. We got a beautiful creek right beside the house. It's completely private. You can't see another light. We're the last power pole. It's a real piece of heaven. So it needed a lot of work when we got there, and that's what the last 5 years have kind of been doing. But you know, Angie and the boys are game always to morning till night, and that's what we've been doing. So it's kind of done now. We've built an arena. The footing is finally in. The footing saga, I can tell you, went on for endless. The footing was in, the footing's out, the footing's in, but finally I rented the big screen plant, and we found gravel on the property, and we screened it and made our own footing, and
Wow.
it was a process.
Wow.
But
I believe you.
I know more about footing than I want to know.
You've learned a lot.
I've learned a lot. So I'm hoping I like my footing now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Let's not change that.
No.
You better. Angie might kill you.
Oh yeah, no, she's done with screen plants and load ears and
And hearing about it, I'm sure.
and oh yeah, it's a daily conversation. Yeah. Horse people can relate though.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
We all can.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You know, let's jump to this one. Sometimes, you know, people are out there, they're trying to get good information, and they can't always. They're even at places like this. You know, there's lots to take in, but sometimes I'm curious to know, what are some bad recommendations you hear in your profession or area of expertise that you might want to warn folks about, or just to consider some other ideas? Yeah. And not to focus on the negative, because I never want to think about that, but just from a perspective of, you know, sometimes you hear maybe things that are misunderstood, or places where you're like, I just really want people to know this piece. Yeah.
I think for me, everything always comes back to the foundation, the rock that you build your house on.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if it's a discipline, specific, competitive, recreational, whatever it is. And that has to be divided into two categories. The training, the skills, abilities, talents that I need in horsemanship, and what I need to impart to a horse. And I think the big thing is that oftentimes, you know, people end up in a conversation around the horse too much, and they're not thinking about themselves and what they need to learn to be better.
Right.
And if we think about, as you go up, the higher thing, I often think about like a pyramid. You know, if you have a pyramid, and a big pyramid, and you want to put one more block on the top of the pyramid, what's the one way to get a block on the top of that pyramid solidly? You have to go back to the bottom. Right. You make the bottom blocks wider all the way around, and you build it up. But then it's up there. Yeah. And every time I think I want to go to the next level in anywhere in my life, well, it's like buying that new property. What's the first thing we check in the house? You know, we check the foundation, we check the roof. Is this thing solid to hold the house up, and is the roof solid to keep water out? Right. It doesn't matter about the windowsill right now. Yeah. You know, so those are the important things. And with horsemanship, we look at that, and then, of course, you know, if you don't have a foundation on a horse, and that horse doesn't fundamentally look to people or trust people to be a leader, and there's a big difference between being a friend and a leader. A lot of horses look at people like they're friendly, but they don't look at them like they're their leader. Yeah. So the relationship is on the condition that everything is in an environment that it's all the same. We're at home, the horse's buddy is there, so the relationship is dependent upon these set of circumstances. But I want the relationship dependent upon because I'm there.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the garbage can or the herd mate or the whatever the horse is scared of. Horse is fine because I'm there. And if the horse isn't fine, then we'll work it out together.
Right.
And so when people, you know, they'll often blame a trainer, they blame the horse, they blame. It's just so defeating to do that. It's such a waste of time to do that. Like, take the responsibility.
Yes.
You know, everybody, all these trainers, there's knowledge. I've learned things from jumpers and reiners and cutters that have applied to the foundational knowledge, and I've learned things from every area. And if you take that in and you're always open to learning like that, figure out what can I do better with that, it's amazing the changes you can make. So the divisiveness and, you know, this feeling of I'm right and he's wrong is just such, it's a, well, I don't have the luxury for that. I don't want to waste time on that.
Yep.
Yes, next.
Yeah.
Yes, next. So I'll do that next.
Yes. That mental picture of the pyramid is, I'm a pretty visual learner, so every time you give those pictures, that really sticks. And I think that, I appreciate the way you answered that, because even when we were looking over the questions, we kind of hummed and hawed on that one, because it wasn't the focus to try and say anything about specifically bad, but the way that you were able to describe that process and create that focus makes a lot of sense.
It makes me think of, too, being a student of yours and taking in many of your clinics, how you often say, like, maybe you can say it better, but about, like, how the people that are actually further along end up taking, like, the course 1 material over and over, like the black belt takes the beginner courses. I know you can say that better, but maybe you could kind of describe that concept, because that's really stuck with me and helped me be a better learner.
Like every time I find the people, if you look at any, like all the books, you know, all the Michael Jordan or anybody, they always go back to those basics.
Yeah.
The layup or the free, whatever it is, you're always going back to those things to see. With a horse, I'm always going back to that introductory information, and that's why those first courses are so important for people to come back to watch, to see how, even to observe. You know, we do these clinics, and I highly recommend people who've been to the course, come watch a clinic. Sit up on the top with your notepad and watch 12 horses go through this. Hear that information around leadership and partnership with horses as if you're hearing it for the first time. And your knowledge that you bring to it in our years of horsemanship, you'll hear it again, but you'll hear it at another level. You'll see something with a horse. You go, I'm seeing that for the first time now. And that, so those basics to me are what I always go back to. And it's for myself, I just want to see if I can always get a better yes with less. It's just, can I get that horse to have, and my understanding to have yet a better understanding with less. So now a little bit of information to me can mean a lot. Where before it was like maybe you take one thing out, but man, horse does one little thing and I see how he steps, and I see how his hind leg comes under, and I see what happens with his back, I see what happens with his head, and I didn't see that shoulder popping out before, that jaw twisting before, but now I see that. Well, I had to watch long enough to see that. Now that means something to me next time I pick up on my bridle. That means something to me next time I ask that horse to turn on a cow. You know, you start to see those little pushes, those angles and so on.
And the observe, remember, compare sort of concept. Yeah, that's great. I like that too, the better yes with less.
Yeah, that's really good. That could be on a mug
I don't
somewhere.
think it's my saying. I don't know where I heard that, but I heard it somewhere, but I like the idea.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Speaking of sayings, your slogan, inspired by horses. Now, this is a question that actually my husband, Clay, he was wondering, Jonathan, what inspired you to work with horses?
What does that slogan mean to you when you hear that, or that phrase?
So for me, inspired by horses is, you know, there's so many things that people put a label on, and you know, every discipline has a label, and so does natural horsemanship, and so does, and with that comes all these connotations and all these expectations. And for me, what I do, what I want to do the best I can, has to be fundamentally inspired by who the horse is, the nature of the horse. So there's, you know, like if we're going to decide to capture a horse, take a horse out of nature. Now, we're already kind of not natural. We're going to put him in a box, we're going to put him on a halter. So we're going to ride him. So for me, I'm going to cross that threshold. I'm going to ride a horse. I'm going to go do stuff.
Right.
But I'm going to try the best I can to understand the psychology of the animal, the innate characteristics of the animal, the needs of a horse. And when I teach, to help people understand the nature of them, the human, totally different species with all the way different brain work, different nervous system, different things work differently in us. Our egos, our ideas, the way that we process information. So we have to understand both those things. So that's why I call it Inspired by Horses. It's and my whole life, in reality, I mean, when all my other buddies were off going to play football, and there was me and 22 girls in the 4-H club. Now, I thought I was the smart one, but I was always inspired by horses.
Right.
So I was always the one wanted to go be with a horse.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
It's a
really
pretty
cool.
concrete answer to what sounded like kind of a magical thing. Like, like I really, there's a lot of common sense there, just the meshing of the two species and needs and
Well, and that idea of being horse-centered, horse first, I think there's
Yes.
a lot of different ways to say that, but that heart of really wanting to do well by them in a way that they, considering their opinion in it, did they enjoy that? What were they looking for, not just what I wanted to get out of them. I always appreciate finding like-minded folks, and that's always been my heart. When I walk in with my horses, wanting to do well by them and wanting them to enjoy being with me. And it's been such a gift in the moments when you try things and they don't work and you go, okay, I hear you. I don't know. It's sitting in that place of, I don't know. But if I'm inspired by horses, then I'm listening and I'll find it. Like maybe it might take me a little while, maybe not.
it's just
but
feedback,
yeah.
right?
And you can get a lot done.
Right.
Like if you understand the horse, you can get a lot done. Like I consult with the police, the Vancouver Police,
Yeah.
and they have to get out there and get a job done. And
For sure.
and or a racehorse or a reining horse or a cow horse or a horse that we're out on some slippery side hill doctoring some cow somewhere. I mean, there's and if you keep in mind how they think and what their needs are, even from a simple way of warming them up properly.
Right.
What did they do the day before? How old are they? Have they been in this environment before? Have they done this? Have they been prepared? You start taking that into consideration. Even if it's Hal, who's done all of those things, well, maybe he's been off for 3 months.
Sure.
Maybe the last person to ride him was my sons, and that's going to change things. So I've got to figure out with this horse right now, what are we capable of, and then where do we want to go with that?
Yes. Yeah. The groundedness and then the purpose. Where do we take that? Yeah.
It's got to have purpose. I want to go do things with the horses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually part of your program too, is then putting it to purpose, which
Has to be.
yeah.
All of this is, if we say it's about connection,
Yeah.
to me that's not enough. So we got connection. We got up here, and we said, okay, guys, we're going to start. And you go, okay, we're connected.
Now what?
That's the next question.
And
Now
that's
what?
what the horse is wondering, right?
Yeah, okay, you're looking at me. We've got 2
Yeah.
ears, 2 eyes.
Yeah.
We've got
What
to
do
do
you
something.
want?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it can't be drudgery. It should be fun. Go do something.
right.
Well, on that note, this has been so fun having you. Thank you so much for sharing and for bringing your wisdom. It's such a joy and pleasure to be able to hear not just all the wonderful things you know about horses, but to know you a little more personally and the things that have brought you to where you are today. We thank you, everyone, for showing up and being here at Horse Expo Canada. Do we have it? We've got one more Horseman's Hot Seat coming up in a little bit, so come back for that if you're interested. And Jonathan, where are you going to be for the rest of today if folks would like to come connect with you?
Yeah,
and see you?
I think the next one is 11 or something like that in the seminar area.
Brilliant.
The 5 mistakes people make, and then I've got a
Yep.
horse for a round pen Liberty session that I don't know what it's done before, so I don't know the horse, or I might have met the horse, I don't know, but
Sure.
we'll find out.
You've
And
got your
that's-
booth. that
And we've
people-
got our booth, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come by the booth, yeah.
And do you have any online resources that people can?
Yeah, we just started our, we've got the new membership. It's fantastic, open field. It's a great community. People get a video every week.
Okay.
And so they can kind of give them a bit of knowledge every single week. We do a Zoom call.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been great because there's people from Scotland and
Wow.
you get to know them like family. And
Wow.
so I invite people to check Open Field out. And we have lots of clinics in Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC throughout the year. you know, get a notepad. The clinics fill up fast, but
Yep.
get a notepad, come with a coffee, and
Yep.
ask questions. It's $25 or whatever it is a day to come watch. I mean, it's
For
just
sure.
it's a good
And
opportunity.
you never know who you might meet sitting on the side of a Jonathan Field clinic. So
How cool is that, you guys? Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity for this, and this has been a lot of fun and lovely
Yeah.
to visit with you both.
wonderful. Thanks again.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.